crest of each wave, bright as lightning. What would you say if you had to leave today? Leave everything behind, even though for once you're shining.
The catastrophes and utter rape of human dignity in the early half of the 20th century devastated the world, so much so that it was agreed among nations to prevent such an event from occurring again. It took 2 years for the United Nations to draft a Declaration of Human Rights that outlined and recognized the inherent dignity and respect for the inalienable rights of all human beings. 50 states participated in the drafting process, and currently all nations have signed, except for Saudi Arabia. Defining these rights in an international organizational setting is the foundation of freedom, justice, and world peace. The treatment of individuals was now of international concern. However, when conflicts turned intrastate in the 1990s, the UN suffered much ridicule when it failed to act in cases that was within the domestic jurisdiction of the state. The mass genocides of the decade prompted the international community the need for a more forceful and decisive mechanism to protect oppressed individuals who were terrorized by their own governments. The Responsibility to Protect doctrine was introduced in 2005 for this exact cause. Since then, sovereignty has taken a whole new meaning. However, is this intervening in state affairs disrespecting state sovereignty? Is it another justified means for Western intervention? Unfortunately, it is quite widely recognized as so. Cultural relativists criticize universal rights as not universal at all. In fact, they simply see these rights as disclaiming histories and imposing an unnatural reality to those it claims to represent. As the United Nations and the Bill of Rights was initially created by Western states, it is argued to only reflect the culture of that hemisphere. The push for the universal adoption of these rights is merely because epistemological assimilation is integral to the liberal tradition. For African cultures, for example, collective rights trump individual rights. However, universal human rights are not culturally tainted. Since 1789, human rights have been struggling to be recognized within Western states such as America, France, and Britain. The universal rights have been processed through human reason and nothing more. Culture, on the other hand, is dynamic. It transforms over time and continuously gets influenced by other cultures, especially in a world as globalized as today. An international commitment to undiscriminating rights is essential to ensure culture will not step over the line of human dignity. Let us now look into the lives of two people who live in a world where human rights is not of concern. Rather, cultural responsibilities are regarded as more important.
My family owned a successful rice business for generations. However, 1949 revolution stripped my family business from me. I am not allowed to follow my Asian family tradition. The communist ideology has raped me and my family of our culture.
I was playing the ancient folk song on my guitar on my street, and my guitar was confiscated for being Zhishan Qiqi. My music collection burnt too, and I was beaten and humiliated in front of my family. The Cultural Revolution has destroyed Chinese culture. For the international community to say this is Chinese custom is saying that the centuries of traditions before 1966 is not Chinese culture.
Human rights are applicable to every human being regardless of race, color, sex, language, religion, or other opinion. Governments may protect citizens from the rights that they aren't aware that they are entitled to. Philip C. Aker advocates that an educated public is crucial and is the best guarantee for human rights. Knowing human rights exists gives incentive for reform from oppressive governments. Ex-Secretary of State Hillary Clinton highlights the women of all corners of the world struggling for basic human rights such as education, healthcare, income security, and democracy.
Over the past 2.5 years, I've had the opportunity to learn more about the challenges facing women in my own country and around the world. I have met new mothers in Indonesia who come together regularly in their village to discuss nutrition, family planning, and baby care. I have met working parents in Denmark who talk about the comfort they feel in knowing that their children can be cared for in safe and nurturing after-school centers. I have met women in South Africa who helped lead the struggle to end apartheid and are now helping to build a new democracy. I have met with the leading women of my own hemisphere who are working every day to promote literacy and better health care for children in their countries. I have met women in India and Bangladesh who are taking out small loans to buy milk cows or rickshaws or thread in order to create a livelihood for themselves and their families. I have met the doctors and nurses in Belarus and Ukraine who are trying to keep children alive in the aftermath of Chernobyl. The great challenge of this conference is to give voice to women everywhere whose experiences go unnoticed, whose words go unheard.
The spread of the human culture must continue to be realized throughout the globe. It may be considered to be a utopian idea, however, over half a century humanity has gone far. If a court for international trials, that is the ICC, was considered in the 1970s or 80s, it would have been immediately dismissed as an unrealistic goal. The worldwide adoption of human rights is a necessary utopianism. Without the continuous efforts by international institutions and international law, the world would be a much uglier place. As the norms of human rights become more and more accepted and legitimate, human rights will be easier to access. A democratic form of world governance is futile if the states involved enjoy radical sovereignty and unrestricted rights. The use of powerful Western states to implement these rights may seem imperial, but it is merely to ensure what the Declaration of Human Rights preamble reads: "The greatest importance is for the full realization of this pledge."
I'm the Secretary General of the United Nations, but I'm also a father and a grandfather. I want a world where everyone can breathe clean air, drink safe water, and have enough to eat. A world in which all people can get an education, live with dignity, and make a decent living. I know we can do it. In my life and in my work, I have seen great pain, but also great hope. Tell the world about the future you want. Together we have the power to make a difference. Together we can change the world.
When they come from over the mountain, yeah, we'll run right around them. We've got no guns, no, we don't have any weapons.